Hello, and welcome to Funcast, episode 3. And today, our guest is Uncle Fungus, Drew Zimmerman from Uncle Fungus, forager, gourmet cultivator, fermentation experimenter, an all around awesome person that's full of knowledge. Thanks for being on the cast today.
No, thanks for having me, man.
How's it going, man? Happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year. It's going great. No complaints so far, man. I mean, the year kind of started off like 100 miles an hour straight out of the gate, so it's been great.
Yeah, I hear that. It's busy, busy, but can't even complain about it, right?
No, yeah, yeah.
So I mean, Drew, you've helped me out so much throughout the years of answering all these questions of when I'm trying to forage. I like to give you credit, most of the credit on some of the mushrooms that I can find in the wild, and be confident that I can eat them. How's your foraging going lately?
Really good. I mean, pretty good. Right now, I'm in Pennsylvania, so it's winter time. There is foraging to be had out there. I typically it's like the off season for me, um, and I more so have been kind of I started getting into foraging around 2016 is when I really started learning like wild mushroom identification. Through like Facebook groups and everything, all self taught. But and over the years, it's just snowballed into everything else, mycology, and I mostly do consulting these days for like wild mushroom identification, like you said. I see you finding chanterelles out there in Florida, which is cool because that's an environment I'm not familiar with. So to watch you go out there and find like chanterelles with like different plant associations is pretty interesting for me.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. First, I feel like the first time I sent you a chanterelle, you were like, "What?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. That's why I'm asking you." And confirmed. Had a meal. I ended up bringing those home that night and sautéing them. Threw them on top of a little ribeye with some broccoli and
Oh yeah.
some taters.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So you started foraging in 2016.
Yeah, started getting into, wild mushrooms around then. Found like I think it was just I was just walking. I was like, I gotta take some time to learn, whatever. And I went on a walk in a public park near me at the time, and I found this whole log. It was covered with chicken in the woods, and these things were massive. It was like a huge flush, and I didn't know what it was at the time. I just knew that like whatever it was exciting as fuck. Like I was like my heart skipped a beat. I was like, what is this? This is so crazy. They're so bright orange and yellow and they're huge. And then that was pretty much kicked off my obsession with wild mushrooms. So I was like, this is what I want to do. Like no one, I don't know this. I don't know anyone else that knows what this stuff really is. There's a few people that can help me, point me in the right direction of like where to find this sort of information, but at the time, it was right before mushrooms really kind of hit the mainstream. So it was like, this is really cool. No one's doing it. This is what I'm going to like kind of dedicate myself to.
That's really awesome, man. You do some foraging classes, and you said you do the identification classes courses. Is that or at least like are the identification courses and stuff? Is that year round, or is it more so like the thing where you take somebody out and you know you find a mushroom and teach them how to identify that specific one?
Yeah, like I'll be asked to do some guided forays with from like local events and stuff throughout the season. Typically like spring through fall is like the main times of year that people ask me to do that. I also throw an event every fall in like mid to end September, Uncle Fungus Fall Fest, and we do like a guided foray, and we have other experts that I know, friends of mine that also chip in, and we just go out in the woods. We pick mushrooms, bring them back. We identify them. We learn information about them. It's just like a whole. It's a mosh podge of like just activities when it comes to it's just foraging. It's just it's so random half the time.
It really is, man. It's so awesome. I like to say like I don't really go mushroom foraging. I just kind of go on a hike and happen to find mushrooms growing.
Hmm.
With that being said, it's I know you have your line of you know I'd say cooking supplies or cooking accessories. I mean, I have some myself. Got the salts. We got the porcini salt
Oh
or
yeah.
porcini salt. Is that how you pronounce
Yep.
it?
Porcini. Yep.
Get some golden oyster
There you go.
and the smoked paprika salt as well.
Yeah, that one's definitely a favorite.
They're so good. I like personally I add them. A lot of times I just use them in my eggs in the morning and
Hmm.
or like steaks or pretty much everything. I don't even use regular salt anymore.
Same.
And it's like I love how you integrate your wild forage mushrooms into your products. Could you talk a little bit more about your product line?
Yeah, so I think I started doing that. I remember I made like a black trumpet mushroom salt back in like 2018 ish. It was something I really, because I was kind of into cooking. Like my first job was a line cook at restaurants, like more higher end restaurants. Fast forward a bunch of years, I'm foraging now, picking tons of mushrooms, finding the honey holes, and I really don't have. I'm not really plugged into the market to like sell them, at this point. So I was like, I have all these mushrooms, gonna dry them or whatever. Like, what can I do with them? Brainstorm some ideas. I'm like, well, I put them in like seasoning. Figure out ways to, integrate them into like a seasoning. So yeah, I started a value added product line that is based on like culinary inputs, so to speak. So yeah, I like to make wild foraged, single sourced, value added products, and it's way easier than say picking a bunch of fresh mushrooms, going to your local market, setting up all day, talking to people all day, selling the things that honestly you probably put more work into than what you're able to sell them for. People are willing to pay for them. So in another instance, it really stretches out the value of them. You can. I think the markup is extreme. Like it's instead of me picking like 5-10 pounds of morels in a season and selling them for like $100 a pound, which is what people will pay. They'll actually throw. They used to throw money at me at markets, like $50 bills, $100 bills, just for a pound, half a pound of mushrooms, for morel mushrooms. So I was like, man, yeah, there's a huge market here. And it's I just honestly I can't just bring myself to sell people these mushrooms. I don't know what they're gonna do with them. It's like I think it's like more of a personal thing. Like I'm so in love with the mushrooms, especially if I'm going out and picking them myself, that like people aren't good enough for them. So I'll make a value added product that I can like really stand by, and people can use, and it stretches the use of that mushroom out for that person who's using the product, and the income, the markup of the value added products is really good. So I think it's become my favorite way to pick and sell wild mushrooms.
I love to see it, man. I love to see it. I know you have some hot sauces as well.
Yes.
I got a hot sauce from you a while back. I finished it, but I am a wimp when it comes to hot sauces. It was just so good. I went, fought through the pain. Um, and are your so I think from when I purchased hot sauce from you last time, it was a completely different batch than what you're currently, I guess, offering.
Yeah.
Are you just pretty much, fermenting batches just over time, and then like once one finishes, bottle it up, then the next round?
Yeah. Yeah, so like I kind of have a different philosophy. Like when it comes to my products in general, sometimes I like the thought of like a seasonal, um, sort of product that may only happen once every couple of years. Kind of like how wild mushrooms will kind of like have a bumper year for porcini, and then you won't see shit for like 2 or 3 years. You know what I mean? So the years that I have those bumper years of whatever I'm using as ingredient wise, like some years my peppers do really, certain pepper does really well, etc. Tomatoes do well one year, and that's what I base my recipes off of for the following year. And I've gone to the point where I want to ferment my stuff as long as I can, get the most funk, the most like active funkiness I can get from say like just one type of pepper or whatever. And also, I've been starting to integrate mushrooms and other wild forage ingredients into my ferments. So that's been pretty interesting. It's been really cool to play around with. I just released a porcini, fermented porcini hot sauce with Scotch bonnet peppers. It's pretty hot. It's got some creeper heat too. The flavor is like really, really earthy, umami. My methods that I use, you can ferment mushrooms several different ways. But the method I use for this hot sauce is I got a ton of porcini mushrooms. I dried them. Wild porcini, like you can't cultivate them, so you have to go out and hunt them. Dry them. I make a really strong mushroom broth. So when you ferment hot sauce or pretty much anything sauerkraut, you're going to want to make a brine, which is just like water and salt. So for this brine, I made a porcini brine. So I would just like steep the mushrooms in the water that I'm going to use for my ferment, and then before I add the salt and everything, and I just make like a tea, a mushroom tea, and then I add that liquid to my ferment, and then fermented for, I think I fermented this one for over a year. This batch, I put actual porcini mushrooms into the ferment as well, and then when I went to go bottle it, I like to do like a light vinegar broth just to bring the pH down, make it shelf stable, and plus I like to play around with the flavors of the vinegars too. Sometimes I make my own vinegars, which is something I'm still getting into. But yeah, I'll do another strong porcini broth with vinegar brine. Just the vinegar that I add to it. So it's like kind of
Hmm.
like on the front end and on the back end of the process, which has been pretty interesting. There's a lot of room for play as far as just adding a vinegar broth. You can add your garlic flavors, your carrot juice, whatever else you want to put in there. I made a Szechuan hot sauce. I added a bunch of Szechuan peppercorns and ginger and garlic to the vinegar brine, which gave that extra flavor to the fermented peppers.
That little, sugar, spice, and everything nice.
Oh
A
yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
razzle
Finding different
dazzle.
ways to integrate it into products is a lot of fun for me.
Dude, I know you just mentioned your peppers. I love your farm. I love your farm. I love to see you growing all your fruits and veggies and your herbs and spices. Teaching people about the no-till methods of farming and uh, keeping it as organic and close to home as possible.
Hmm.
Um, that being said, I remember we had spoken about when your mushroom cultivation, right? Your gourmet mushroom cultivation. Before we get into that, gotta rock the Uncle Fungus T-shirt, and also in the video description, we're gonna have all the links and everything that you can use to get to Drew's website, so you yourself can try these amazing products he offers. Um, but back to the mushroom cultivation, you said you did it, outdoors,
Yes.
or at least, well, I want to say semi outdoors. Is like a greenhouse involved. I think that was like super cool to hear. Because I don't know. I think you're going back to the seasonal, you know aspect of all of the things, right? You're using the seasons to grow, and
Yeah,
when it's not time, it's not time.
sure. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, yeah, I could touch up on that. Yeah, I started growing outdoors. Before that, I had an indoor grow room during 2020 when everything shut down. I wanted to help out with like the food shortages and things that were happening. Not to mention, I was already in the process of um, becoming a mushroom cultivator as like a side hobby, side hustle. And I had a little grow room set up and everything. And I would already had my procedures down, already had all my spawn runs down, had all my sub and everything colonized. You know, the incubation room was full. I lined up a bunch of restaurants, prior, like weeks prior to I knew when I was going to start harvesting these mushrooms, like oysters, lion's mane, you name it, pretty much all the hits, all the good ones, and yeah, so I was about ready to go do my first round of deliveries, and it was a Thursday. I remember this like it was yesterday. It was a Thursday. I had about four restaurants locally that were like really nice high end restaurants. Some of them aren't around anymore. Um, but I went to go do my deliveries, and that was the day that they shut everything down. So I was sitting there with about 30 pounds of mushrooms. My first delivery is just like, what am I gonna do? You know what I mean? I got, probably about 200 pounds of mushrooms coming in over the next month that I have to fucking get rid of, or else it's gonna flop. You know what I mean? So I turned to social media. I'm not really on Facebook anymore, but I use Facebook and Instagram to really kind of get people involved on, hey, I got this like, healthy food. You're having trouble finding food. If you don't have money because you're not working or whatever, you know your COVID funds haven't hit your bank account yet, or if you're not even eligible for them, like I will straight up hook you up with free mushrooms. You'll come pick them up, and I started doing local deliveries in town, and that's how I built my brand. That's kind of how I started out with Uncle Fungus mushrooms and really started building my brand. Things kind of caught traction with that. Fast forward, a couple years, it was a lot of work. I was doing markets, every week I was doing a market, at least one market that was like 12 hours, long by myself, running, a small little mushroom farm, producing at least like anywhere from like 40 to 100 pounds of mushrooms a week with my indoor grow room. And then cleaning, all the lab work. I was doing everything. I wasn't purchasing spawn from anybody. I was doing all my own culture work, running commercial cultures. You name it. The whole rundown with that. But yeah, it was a lot of work. And at the time, I had one kid. He was my son Theodore. He's 6. He's 6 years old now. And then I had another little one on the way at the time. And I was just like, well, I just want things to be easier. You know what I mean? I just want to. It's like, what's a way that I can not have to fricking clean a grow room like every week, every other week? What can I do to like kind of just take advantage of something that would help me out with production? And I was like, in China, Asia, they've been growing mushrooms outdoors seasonally for a long time. So I kind of got clues from that. I was like, what if I could just do like a little hoop house, a little tunnel out of like cheap materials like PVC, and then just in like little raised beds, put some racking in there, and then like just figure out when the best time of year for each species of mushroom I could grow would be the best for that. So yeah, I came up with my own design for that, and it ended up being really successful. I was able to figure out which mushrooms grew best at different times of the year. After about 3 or 4 years of doing it, I mean, at one point I had two of them, and I was able to fully load both of the tunnels. And I mean, you couldn't walk in them. They're kind of like about, I don't know, 4.5, 5 feet tall at the peak because they were just like little mini hoop houses.
mhm.
And I would just have like shade cloth over top. And underneath that would be like clear 6 mil plastic sheeting that would block wind. It would trap humidity. And then I figured out how to add moisture. So I hooked up a hose line to the top, and just strung some like a tube with misters on it. So I would just hit the misters if it was dry. Have the little these little what were they? Like humidity, temperature, not controls, but like it would totally
Like the ink bird thing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But it was like it didn't control anything. I was just able to hook up to my phone. It would told me like drops in temperature, drops or rises in humidity, and 40% shade cloth really helped with like the temperature situation. So I was just kind of dialing things in like you would any other grow room, but just using natural systems. It's almost like a form of permaculture using natural systems in your environment to grow high quality mushrooms. And it ended up being working so well that the mushrooms I was growing outdoors seasonally were 10 times better than the ones I was growing indoors. I mean, I wasn't using electricity to run fans, exhausts, all that stuff. I was just putting blocks outside in that tunnel. I wasn't having contamination issues because of the natural biology. Tons of fresh air and oxygen, keeping like things like mold, trichoderma, things like that at bay, which is really helpful. Never had to clean it. Still haven't cleaned it. You know what I mean? It just
Yeah,
naturals. It's as natural as could be. The mushrooms ended up being, uh, you know, exposed to vitamin D. So like natural sunlight. Mushrooms are just like our skin. They'll convert full spectrum natural sunlight and turn it into vitamin D3, which is one of the only other sources of vitamin D3 that you can get besides the sun, that is actually bioavailable to you. So if you eat mushrooms that are grown outdoors, you're actually getting some vitamin D from that. They would come out dark, like how your skin gets tan. You're from
hmm,
Florida, but yeah,
yeah. I wish, man. To be honest, dude, this is the tannest I'll ever be.
I get it. Oh man, I get scorched up here in PA during the summer, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. So the scent, the aroma profiles to say like golden oysters growing outside was like insane. It was like there was no comparison. They just you could smell them like 10 feet downwind, just like this floral honeysuckle sort of like kind of fishy, stanky, like in a good way. Golden oyster mushrooms, which I mean, if I was doing an outdoor market or something, people would smell them before they saw them, and they see these big yellow florets or clusters of oyster mushrooms, and they're like, "What is that?" Same thing with pink oysters too. That's a really good one. If you're doing
It's like
markets,
edible arrangements.
yeah, no, it totally was. People really tried to get in on that. They're like, "Oh, would you do like a if I had a wedding, would you do like a bouquet of like mushrooms instead of flowers?" I'm like, I don't know, what I mean? Like it's cool, but I was like, I don't know, but never ended up happening. But yeah, growing outdoors is, in my opinion, a superior method to seasonal outdoor mushroom cultivation. I can grow in Pennsylvania. My growing season is from I would depend on the weather. This year it was a little hot into September, and the weather just wasn't correct. It was really dry. Dry is probably the worst thing that could happen, and we had a really dry September. But yeah, early September through October, November, and I've even grown mushrooms in like this time of year in January. Golden enoki mushrooms. They are a mushroom that grows naturally in this area this time of year. So like they're not affected by the freeze and thaw. I mean I've had them growing and like they'd be covered in ice, and I go to pick them, and like the mushrooms aren't even frozen. They produce their own like antifreeze compounds, which is really interesting, and like they'll thaw out, and they'll be fine. They'll be like just as good as if you grew them in a indoor environment, so to speak.
It's so cool how things just adapt to the environment that and grow in. Most mushrooms, I feel like even if you like wash them too much, they get so soggy and they just get a little. They absorb all that water so much.
Mm-hmm.
And man, as far as like all that goes, though, dude, I feel like your kids don't even know how good they eat right now.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Uh,
getting into the picky food age. They're like I got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and now I have a 2.5-year-old stepdaughter. So yeah, there's a lot of little kids running around. They all have their own little things, that they like to eat. But my youngest son, his name's Tyler. He's 3. He loves mushrooms. Like he'll eat a can of sardines and stuff. Like he's one of them funky kids that like likes to
That's
get down.
awesome, man. You know, food is. I love food. Like, try any food once. What's the worst that's gonna happen?
Right,
You don't like it, like, you know.
food poisoning. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I guess true that, true that, true that. Try to get all my food from like trusted sources.
yeah, it's very important. Yeah, absolutely.
um, yeah, man. So I see you've been messing around a lot with sourdough starters and just I guess fermentation in general.
Yeah.
Uh, are you creating your own starters?
No, no, I'm not creating my own starters. Although I've thought about it. I've just been kind of focusing on maybe one day I will. Just been kind of focusing on just the methods, like baking bread and stuff like sourdough bread. I'm really into that. It seems like this time of year, a few years ago, before I kind of gave up gourmet mushroom cultivation for other aspects, other things that I was going after. Was just experimental, like food lab time is like winter time for me, so I'll be doing like my fermentations, like kombucha. I like to play around with that. And this winter's been sourdough. I kind of got into it last winter. This winter I'm really focusing, dialing things in, and trying to do the best I can and learn as much as I can.
Man, kombucha is. I was making it for a little while, and honestly, like I could get the first fermentation process down, no problem.
Hmm.
But then as soon as I started adding flavor,
Yeah.
it's like a little goes a long way in that aspect. And honestly, most of my flavors were garbage. They tasted so bad.
Yeah, I mean, you got like citrus season down there in Florida though too. I mean, you have access to a lot of really awesome fruits and stuff this time of year. Um,
True, but like they had this thing called it was like canker, and it like pretty much like just destroyed all like the citrus down there. It was I feel like
oh
within
shit! I think I
so I'm sorry.
think I heard about that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
no, even like a lot of like the groves and stuff that I grew up seeing
Hmm.
are just no longer. They just chopped them all down. It's pretty much apartment complexes now, or
Wow,
just like grass.
damn, that sucks. Yeah,
Yeah, man. So it's a good thing I got into mushrooms because now I can't even go like sneak an orange from somebody's tree or not saying I ever did that because that's
yeah.
illegal.
Mushrooms are probably the ones that cause the blight to begin with. So you know what I mean. You're getting a superior organism that you're after. It's probably going to conquer just about everything you throw at it.
Oh, I mean, mushrooms have their own kingdom for a reason. I feel like a
That's
lot of people forget that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, kombucha, man, it's fun. I like playing around with herbs too. Like I'll do like a bunch of herbs and stuff. I like to just do whatever I have on hand. You know what I mean? I have tried some things that haven't worked as well, but for the most of the part, I have. Well, what's important is I haven't had any explosions yet. So second fermentation. I've heard of people like letting it go a little too long, add a little too much sugar, and explosions happen. But yeah,
I had a couple explosions happen once or twice. Forgot to burp it. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm almost. I gotta check mine actually. It reminds me. Yeah.
man, when you're not being a super dad and like super chef and just a super person, what do you like to do? Like, what some hobbies that you enjoy doing that don't involve cultivation or foraging and just some normal human activities.
Yeah, yeah. As a normal human being, I really like live music. I consider live music my religion, so to speak. It's like my church going to a festival or a show, seeing a band that I really like to check out, a performance rather. Um, yeah, that's something I really enjoy doing. It's like my reset button typically. So I like to enjoy myself in that state, state of mind. And then I like to play some instruments, play a little bit of music, things like that. Do some art here and there. 5 inning downtime. Just basically whatever whatever any other human would like to do, I guess.
I feel like we're all different, right? So everybody's got like different hobbies and different things they enjoy.
Yeah,
So it's a kind of like a hard question when I
it
add
can be if you ever
normal
think it.
human.
Yeah,
So I know you've mentioned Goose a couple of times. You're the
yeah,
jam
yeah.
band man over here.
Yeah, I'm a jam band guy. Yeah, I think I played them out a little too much over the past 2 years. I'd say, just definitely I've got my goose fill, so to speak. Bands that I really like to listen to, like I just saw this band Lotus on New Year's Eve in Philly. That was a lot of fun. They're one of my favorite bands right now. Their live performances are just insane. Also, I'm a hate or love it. I love fish. I was kind of grew up on fish. My parents were deadheads. I saw Jerry when I was like 1.5, 2 years old before he died in '95. So I kind of grew up in that kind of realm of like parents weren't necessarily hippies, but they definitely got down. You know what I mean? They were definitely ones taking my little ass to Grateful Dead shows and checking out Shakedown and hanging out on lot and shit. So I mean,
With the baby with earmuffs on, crowd
yeah,
surfing.
yeah, I was that kid. Yep, I was crowd surfing with earmuffs on. Yep, yep,
Damn right, dude. Expect nothing less.
yeah, yeah. So I want to raise my kids in the same way. I think it really cultured me in a good way. I
My
guess.
backdrop just fell, guys. We're gonna go. We're just gonna throw it. We're gonna throw it back. Still figuring all this stuff out. I just taped up a blanket to the window.
Yeah, I gotta get a backdrop, dude. My kitchen is like whatever.
Well, this was the first time I tried. I just saw it. I was like, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah,
My idea was kind of just do stuff around like the yard, but for the most part, just going with the flow.
better than one of those backdrop filters. You know what I'm talking about? Those digital
Oh
filters.
yeah, like you could see through my forehead.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. You have like an incense burning. It's like the smoke doesn't know where the smoke is.
Yeah, it's like forgetting. I think Mycopreneur podcast just posted one of his videos, and he had uh, yeah, I want to say I guarantee he did it on purpose, but in one of his skits, he had one of the backdrop filters on, and it was doing that exact thing,
Uh huh.
and it just fit the skit so perfect. It was hilarious.
That's
Dude
fun.
is that's just funny. Do you know? Do you like watch his stuff at all?
I've been following him for a little while on Instagram. Checked out some of his podcasts and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I see a nice trend of like people in the mushroom community doing these sorts of podcasts and things, and kind of just like interviewing, talking, and hanging out with people virtually, which is like a good way to get to know these people in the community on a more personal level. Typically, I feel like because it's like you can only know someone so much through interactions on like commenting, social, voice messages, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I think it's really cool what you guys are doing.
Dude, thanks, man. I think that was my whole idea of this podcast is just to kind of like get to know the people who are teaching us so all of these things, or the friends and family. I'd say
Hmm.
I speak to a lot of you and a lot of people online more than I do people that I know in real life. Then it's always very much like I'd say work related, right? Or mycology related. So it's cool to step out of that realm, get to know these people as the people they are,
Hmm.
uh, and then we just happen to do this thing that other people are trying to learn or also enjoy, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. Are you originally from Pennsylvania?
Yeah, born and raised Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So I really haven't lived anywhere else outside of Lancaster County, which is honestly fine by me. I really like it here. It's really awesome. It's like it's a mushroom capital of the world, essentially, because we have Kennett Square. It's like 45 minutes away, in like Westchester, area. So no, it's pretty cool. The competition was tight though, as far as me growing gourmet mushrooms. especially even the exotic ones like oyster mushrooms, king oyster, all those other ones, because you are constantly competing with these larger, massive operations that are able to literally sell the mushrooms, for pennies on the dime compared to what I can sell them for. I was only really able to do like retail, and even then the retail, was expensive for a lot of people because they would compare you to the larger operations selling them for like half the price. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
definitely a little difficult with that situation. That's kind of another reason why I gave up gourmet mushroom production in general. And now I do consulting and I teach a lot. And I get to play around with the knowledge as much as I can.
I mean, that's awesome. You took something and something that you love doing and transformed it into the same thing but different, right? Just like
Yeah,
you're doing with your products, and you're stretching it out. We have to find different ways of making income, so might as well integrate what we love doing into just those ways.
yeah, I'm also 33 now, and I'm definitely not young. I'm not 26, 27 anymore. So I don't, the energy levels, the amount of work that I want to have to do, especially for income, to feed a family and stuff. The least amount of work with the highest, income rate would is like where I aim. The least amount of work, like you mentioned like my garden and stuff. I look for methods of gardening that are just the least amount of work. The less I have to touch it, the less I have to do, the better. I'm trying to get some things that just are just like I barely have to do anything to get really good results. And those are the methods. That's how my brain is started to work over the years. The less work I have to do, the better.
Yeah, man, it's all about the efficiency, right? I feel like a lot of people say if you do what you love, you won't work a day in your life, and like I love what I do, but geez Louise, do I work?
Yeah,
Whoever said that, we gotta talk to them.
yeah, yeah. It becomes a chore. What you love becomes a chore. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
feel like
switching
as
it
soon as
up.
you start making money, then it's just like then it becomes a chore.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, and have to deal with the people that give you the money on a regular basis. Like, ugh, man, I can only imagine.
it comes with comes with it, and comes. I wouldn't change a thing. I
Yeah,
love it, and anybody can complain about anything, but for the most part, it's the greatest thing. And I have a hard question for you,
yeah.
so I'm gonna say ask for the top three, um, top three favorite mushrooms to forage.
Okay. Starting with number
Um,
one.
yeah,
Number one probably has to be. Well, it would yeah, it's a crowd favorite. The morel mushroom, hands down. Reason being, it's just the most elusive mushroom that I hunt every year. It hides in plain sight. Only way that I've trained my brain to find this mushroom is just the pattern of the mushroom. Uh, if you don't know what a morel mushroom looks like, it's very unique. It's hard to describe, but when I'm out in my spots, I'm looking around the ground. I'm like on all fours, hands and knees, all on the ground, looking underneath the ground flora, all the plants and stuff. They're hiding behind like a twig, things like that. Which it gets really exciting because you could find a couple morels and you just keep looking at a spot for like 15, 20 minutes. I'm talking combing it, every inch of it. And then right when you're about ready to give up and move on to the next spot, another one just like appears out of nowhere. You're like, are you kidding me? Like I passed it like 5 times. So it's really exciting. It's fun for me. It's the best game of hide and seek that I like to play as an adult. Number two, I would probably have to say porcini. Um, you know, uh, just our porcini mushrooms that grow in association with like pine trees, especially like Norway spruce and things like that. They usually pop up in September, end of September, maybe Octoberish, depending on the season. More so like early to mid October. But yeah, those are really fun. I mean, you can find them out in the open in a field next to a tree. You can find them, on in wood lines in the woods. They get really big, and they're just like, I mean, when you find them just like a prime, almost like button, they look so perfect. They have this reticulation on the stem that like I just feel like I can just like zoom in with almost mechanically into those like tiny details and just like put myself there. It's just a really interesting mushroom to observe like up close. Like put it in your hand, you feel it, you find it. It's really exciting. That's definitely number two for me. Number three, I'd probably have to say black trumpets. I think black trumpets are another one that are really elusive. You know, there's different variations of them. Like I know there's this mushroom called the ashen chanterelle. It's Craterellus venosus in my area, and they are the darkest mushroom I probably pick. I mean, they're like black, so dark that they blend right into the leaf. Your eyes don't even pick up on them. It's insane. There's been times where I've been in my spot, and I have this spot in Maryland that just produces carpets of them, depending on the season. If we get enough rain and everything, rain is the most important factor as long as it doesn't dry out when it's time to fruit. And they fruit like this spot fruits on like pretty much within 7 to 10 days every single year. It's right on Memorial Day weekend. I think that's like in September, something like that. I believe. I may have confusing this with the other holiday, but yeah, I'll be in that spot and I'll just be looking around again. I'll just be like, I'm in the spot. I know they're here, and then I'll give up after 10 minutes. I'm like, maybe I'm getting skunked. I gotta come back next week. Maybe put my stuff down, like drink some water or whatever, smoke a joint or something, and like all of a sudden I'm just like standing on them. I'm just like, where the fuck did they come from? Like carpets. I'm like, there's no way my mind. Once your mind picks up on it, it recognizes that pattern on the ground, that color, that whatever it is that makes it kind of blend in and stand out at the same time, and then your mind figures it out. Like it's like every year you almost like you kind of lose that ability until you start finding them again, and then your mind's just like boom, like at least that's how my mind works. It's just it just locks in on them, and you're able to just find them everywhere.
Yeah, it's like you see that, like that, just the different shape, or you see, yeah, exactly, you see what they look like, and they're like, oh, 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 and then you
Yep.
see like four of them that you absolutely did step on.
Yeah. Yep.
Back to the black trumpets, and so I remember one day when you posted your black trumpet kimchi, and I was like, what does a guy got to do to get one of those? And you're like, I don't know about that.
I ended up sending you some though, right? I think
You
I think
did. And I
yeah.
tore it up, man. It
Nice.
was so good. Yeah, no, but I had to be like, please, Uncle Fungus.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the first time I ever made that. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, uh, yeah, the black trumpet mushrooms and the kimchi, they're a match made in heaven, I believe. And what's awesome about the black trumpets is that their aroma profile is so unique. Um, uh, they almost smell like sweet honeysuckle apricots, really fruity, really floral. Especially when you have like a big bunch of them, you just stick your face in there and you can just smell it. It's like it's intoxicating. And then the other like variety or species of Craterellus venosus, the one that's really hard to see that I was talking about. That
You
one
said the
actually has
Ashen Chanterelle?
yeah, it's like a chanterelle crossed with a black trumpet almost, and it has like the veiny looking fertile surface under the cap, but it has the same sort of structure like a black trumpet, like it has a hollow stem, has like a trumpet shape almost. But that one actually, when you have a bunch of those, still has that same apricot, really intoxicating floral aroma, but in like larger quantities, it almost has like a back end like blue cheese smell to it, which is really
Mm.
interesting. It's really funky, and they're really strong in flavor because first time I tried them, I just did them in like a pan with a little bit of butter, no salt, no nothing, just to get the idea of what they tasted like. And they were almost kind of bitter. Like I didn't know if I ever cooked them or what. Tried it again. I was like, no, they definitely have like a good flavor there, but it's like so concentrated that I almost have to like put them in a cream sauce or water them down, so to speak, with something that's like kind of like a blank canvas for like flavors to be built upon. So yeah, I like to do black trumpets with like a cream sauce or a pasta sauce, pasta dish. Black trumpet, pasta is really cool too. I'll make my own pasta. Grind up some black trumpets and into a fine powder and put them in the dough, and it's pretty fun.
I have some of those chanterelles that I found. I think they're the golden ones. I remember I sent you two different uh, I guess chanterelles. It was like more of the ones I found in like the sign. They're sand pines. They
Hmm.
were like the more yellow one. I think that was Cantharellus sibiaris, right?
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of that's a correct way to say it. There's a lot of research going with DNA analysis in North America for wild mushrooms. My friend Mandy's been kind of doing that with Alan Rockefeller. They've been basically barcoding, figuring out relationships between because like Cantharellus, I think it's like yeah, the one that you mentioned. It's been so long since I said that name, but that's like more associated with like European chanterelles.
Ah,
So like the name obviously carries over until further determination, and there's a lot of that going on. So there's a lot of mushrooms being renamed, recategorized. So like I really got into mushroom identification back in 2016, 2017. I was like, man, I know a lot now. And then all of a sudden DNA barcoding came in and switched it all up. And I'm like, well, these names are pretty much outdated. You know what I mean? Like they just changed Amanita muscaria, variation Gasui, which is like the yellow Amanita that
mm-hmm.
grows around here. Now it's I think it's like Crystallis or something like that. I forget the name, but yeah, they changed the names, and so it's like I'm like, yeah, it's kind of pointless, but to like just learn all the Latin terminology at this point, because it's constantly evolving, which is cool. But at this stage, I'm like, I don't want to fill my brain with a bunch of information that might potentially be wrong.
That's how I felt about the ringless honeys when
Yeah.
I found the ringless honeys and I was talking to you about them. Um, and then I posted it in a Facebook group, and that's like all the comments were like, "Well, this is associated with the European version, and this is the new name that they put for the I guess the North American one." And I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, okay." Uh, so
Yeah.
ringless honey it is.
Exactly right. Common names. I've become in more acceptance. Common names, or even just the genus, like Armillaria. Like I'll just say that it's Armillaria species, and that's like comfortable for me. When you start getting down to species, subspecies, and things like that, things get really technical, especially on those Facebook groups. I know how they can be. They can much punish you for being like accidentally wrong. You know what I mean? But you
Those
learn a
keyboard
lot.
warriors.
You learn a lot. Yeah, they're keyboard warriors, man. They just sit behind a keyboard and but hey, they share knowledge if that's what they want to do. That's why I kind of left those forums because I feel like I was just using so much of my energy just sifting through a bunch of piles of shit.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I
Yeah,
like to just kind of like keep my distance, art, so to speak, and
yeah,
there's some people who clearly know what they're talking about, and obviously I feel like it's something that I don't take really any of it to heart
you
for the
can't.
most part. You can't take it any to heart, and even like the information they provide, even if it's like correct, I still feel I have to do my own research. I have to get the spore print. I have to see
Absolutely.
you got to make sure it's edible. I mean, I guess all mushrooms are edible at least one time, right?
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah,
But I wanted to ask, since I do have those dehydrated mushrooms,
yeah,
the chanterelle specifically, what's a good way to use them in a culinary aspect after dehydrating them?
yeah. Like
Do
reconstitute them. Yeah, I would just soak them in cold water for like an hour or two and see where they get. Chanterelles, they dehydrate, but I've like in my experience, I feel like the when you reconstitute them, They definitely lose some of their original texture when they're fresh. Though you totally can reuse them. And like my favorite way I've had chanterelles was actually I made a food video about it. They were with fresh chanterelles. They weren't dehydrated and reconstituted, but I turned them into like a syrup, like a chanterelle syrup, and put it on ice cream.
Ooh,
They're like they're a mushroom that I associate with like a sweet flavor, like a candy flavor, something like that. The texture and everything just kind of fits, and actually the chanterelle mushroom naturally has higher levels of sugar in it. So that's kind of why they might have like a more of a sweeter flavor when they're fresh and things like that. So I mean, if I were to do something like that, I would like make chanterelle jam. Even you know what I mean? Like reconstitute them, mix them up, add some water, kind of boil them a little bit, add a bunch of sugar, and just reduce it into like a nice thick syrup, and then you'll have like a beautiful, sweet little chanterelle jam to use on whatever you want.
that sounds delicious. I had like that was something you just like opened up a new, arguably like uh tree in my palette for mushrooms. It's something that I never even thought about using as far as in a dessert aspect, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's always I always feel like the umami. It's like the savory. You gotta eat some meat and cheese.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It's not always about savory. It's we threw an event with Future 4200 Dustin Powers, and my
he's
buddy who's
awesome.
yeah. We threw an event before Myco Fest this past summer, and my I have a chef friend who he loves working with mushrooms, and I've inspired him to kind of experiment with different mushrooms, and he makes awesome stuff. His name's Chef Greg, and yeah, we collaborate. We do events like food courses with like an event that's tailored towards foraging things like that, and we collaborate on that. And he made like a porcini vanilla ice cream, and like I put like a what was it like the pink chanterelle,
Mm-hmm.
Cinnabarinus. Yeah, I turned that into like a little jam jelly thing. We put on the ice cream. I think there's a video on my Instagram where I did that. But yeah, definitely the chanterelles. I like to favor them towards more of the the dessert style presentation and food. I one time I made black trumpet honey. I extracted black trumpets in like a coconut oil, and then put the coconut oil, mixed it with the honey, so I wasn't heating up the raw honey and destroying all the beneficial things in it. And I was just kind of mixing it up. The temperature is everything. You got to have the right temperatures. You can't have the oil too warm or the honey too warm or too cold. You know what I mean? And you just
Yeah.
basically emulsify them. And then I had this awesome like black trumpet honey that it was great, like on a charcuterie board, things like that.
Gosh, that's awesome, man. You're just awesome. You're always like learning more. You're always learning more stuff, and I feel like at least from what I see, you're cranking it out with success.
Mm.
And it's you post your experiments, and it's like I never see there's never any failure. I feel like we all have failure, but for the most part, you go in, you get it done, you feed your bellies, and you
Mm.
live your life, man. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Um,
I just recently started getting into koji, which is something I've been wanting to do for a few years, and that's been really interesting. So that's kind of like my new thing. I was doing sourdough. I'm like, push that aside. I want to do some koji. So I'm going to start messing around with that, and that's like a whole deep rabbit hole, which is really exciting. That's kind of like my next obsession that I can see myself getting lost in for the next couple of years.
what's koji?
So koji is like it's a fungus. It's a type of mold that it's been used for thousands of years in Asia, like Japan. They've in Japan, China. They've been using it for over 3,000 years, and it's basically but their ingredients you can depend on your region. You can use certain types of ingredients. It's the same basic procedure, but it's a mold that was found growing. It's how you make rice wine. It's how you make like soy sauce, soju.
Okay.
You know, uh, all
Like
kind
sake?
miso, yeah, sake, miso, all kinds of stuff. Rice wine vinegar. It's basically the precursor to all that. So it's like a mold that you can grow it on rice or another kind of starchy material, and it colonizes it in a matter of like a couple of days. You know, you just incubate at the right temperatures and the right humidity levels, just like you would any other type of fungus, in particular to its own parameters. But yeah, you do that, and it basically what it does is it colonizes the rice, goes inside the rice, it breaks down all the proteins and starches, and the way mushrooms like consume things, they colonize things. The mycelium colonizes. They produce these enzymes that break down proteins and things like that in the thing that they're breaking down, whether it's like lignin and wood, and it creates these like amino acids, which is like one of the basic forms of like the primordial soup. That like it's like where everything pretty much came from. So it's eating these amino acids. It's using these enzymes to help break down, and that's where a lot of the flavors come. So you can unlock tons of new flavors with using koji. Like people make miso, and you just unlock these like umami, blasts of flavor that you would never be able to get without the mold or the fungus there to do the work for you. I mean, it tenderizes things. Like I just ate a koji steak. I just covered it in rice koji and let it sit in the fridge and kind of dry age for a couple of days. I had it last night for the first time ever eating koji steak, and yeah, it was really awesome. It was like a ribeye, but it was so tender. Like the mycelium just really kind of broke down those proteins and things and just tenderized the meat. I'm gonna do like chicken probably like this weekend. Do some chicken thighs with it. And just play around with it. You know what I mean? Just see what I can come up with and the new flavors that I'm getting from this new technique.
That's awesome, man. I'd love to see all your experiments, and I'd love to see you doing all your things. I feel, we've pretty much gone over a whole lot of stuff. Is there anything else that you'd like to possibly mention?
Um,
Um,
yeah, I guess yeah, the holidays are really good for my website. I'm doing a massive restock on products and stuff right now. So I mean, if you're interested, looking forward to some of my value added products that I mentioned. I'm going to start offering them up, restocking my store. I got cleared out this holiday season, which is awesome. I thank everyone who bought something and supported me and my family. It means the world to us. There's a raffle going on right now. I'm doing just like a little collection of some really cool value-added products. Some morel salt that I make. I infuse some morels into the salt crystals, and it's just this umami blast. It's amazing on like red meat and whatever else you want to put it on. A bunch of other cool things, T-shirt, all that stuff. So yeah, there's a raffle, $5 for a ticket if you're interested to do that. That's always an option. It helps support us and everything.
Heck yeah, man. And to get to his website, it's unklefungus.com. UNKLEFUNGUS.com. And Drew's Instagram is also Uncle Fungus. It's same thing, UNKLE_FUNGUS. You could find all of his experimentation videos on his Instagram stories. You can see all of the good food, and it's way better than watching the Food Network channel, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I just wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast, man. You've been a huge help to me as a person, learning how to cultivate, learning how to forage. You're just so full of knowledge, and you're an open source book. You want people to learn how to do it, rather than keep it, close to heart and capitalize on that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, man.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'd like to say this was a wonderful episode, man. I feel like we could wrap it up. We
Yeah.
went over so much. I think people are going to learn so much from this episode of Funcast, and it's been wonderful talking to you. I'm super excited to see where you take your experiments in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you ever want me to come back on in the future sometime, I'd love to talk about whatever desired or situations or
I'd
whatever.
love it. Love for you to be on, come on again. And maybe, next time we could get a little view of the garden or some of the, the koji fermentation experiments and stuff like that, just to give some people a little idea of what it looks like. Because, they're going to see it on your gram anyways, but it'd be an honor to get a little walkthrough from the man himself.
Absolutely, that sounds great, man.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, bro. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I'll be texting you and messaging you on the gram.
Sounds
Uh,
good.
and until next episode, thank you very much.
Thanks.